Rink-wide Vancouver, pre-game, post-game, every game, presented by Bodog. Make a play at Canada's choice for free casino game sports odds and poker strategies. Wadden and JPat here with you with a special edition, the first one of the year and the debut on YouTube. JPat, we did this last year. We're doing it again this year. Players of the week and penalty box.
Yeah, you got a little bit of love, but at the same time, there's guys that, hey, they got to pick up the rack. And this is the preseason. I think there are a number of players that are starting to feel the heat a little bit here as the Canucks move into the second and final week of the preseason. So there was some good. There's been some less than good in the opening week of the preseason, even going back to training camp. So, yeah, we'll find our players of the week, but we're going to shove a couple of guys in the penalty box here. I think minor penalties in the preseason, right? Nobody's getting tossed in there for 5 or game misconduct. These will be minor penalties here in our first one of the season.
All right, let's start with the penalty box, and I'll give you the honors.
Yeah, I think there have been a couple of underwhelming performances through camp and into the preseason. And for me, it's Will Lockwood. This kind of felt like it had to be his time if he was going to become a member of the Vancouver Canucks. And I'm not ruling it out entirely. And again, there's still 4 preseason games to go. I don't think that he's going to appear in all of them. But based on his 2 preseason appearances so far, and even a pretty quiet training camp up in Whistler, I'm putting Will Lockwood in there. I expected more. He probably expected more of himself. I'm guessing the organization expected to see a little bit more. And we talked on our post-game pod after the overtime loss to the Seattle Kraken on Thursday night. Yeah, he was credited with a game-high 8 hits, but man, I'd have to go back through the game film, and I'm not going to do it because it's preseason. But I'd have to go look long and hard because I don't remember any of those hits. So I think it's been a pretty disappointing preseason to this point for Will Lockwood. I'm putting him in the penalty box for 2.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And, with Will Lockwood, it's one of those guys I think people sort of penciled in, like, this is the season. He's going to be a Canuck this year. JPat, I've mentioned it before. I just don't see it. And I don't know if it's there. Now, I'll give him some credit for last night's game because he did push himself through what clearly was an injury during the game. But I don't know if he's going to be an everyday NHLer with the Canucks, and I just don't see it right now. I agree with those 2 minutes in the penalty box for Will Lockwood. I got Danny DeKeyser in there, and I feel like I'm talking out both sides of my mouth because the other day I said to you, I feel like they're probably going to give him a contract. And the only reason why I felt that is because of the leash that they were giving him. The fact that he, technically is an NHLer. He's got over 500 games under his belt. However, in the preseason games we've seen, he just hasn't stepped up to the plate and seized the opportunity. 17 minutes of time on the ice between both games, second pair. And honestly, what did we see out of him out there? Not a whole lot. One of the things we did see, the foot speed. It just isn't there. Didn't tie up Ty Cartier's stick in the Seattle's first goal last night. Again, compete there. A guy that's played over 500 NHL games you'd expect more from. I don't know if this guy's going to make the team, but I got him in the penalty box this week for 2 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know how many more opportunities he's going to get. He's appeared in 2 preseason games. He's on this PTO. He's got to earn himself a contract. They got to get the paperwork done if he's going to be a Vancouver Canuck. And as we sit here right now, I'm just not convinced that there's a contract waiting for Danny DeKeyser. Interesting, at practice on Friday out at UBC, the musical chairs on defense continue. Today he was paired with Kyle Burroughs. So hard to know if that's a good news sign because we like the performance of Burroughs against the Seattle Kraken. But, to this point in camp, he had been paired with guys that you think are going to be in the Vancouver Canucks lineup when the season starts, whether it was Tyler Myers, whether it was a Tucker Poolman. Now it's Kyle Burroughs. So I think Danny DeKeyser's got some work to do. He's going to have to get out of that penalty box, though, to be able to perform to the best of his abilities.
My player of the week this week, number 96 in your program, Andrei Kushmenko. 2 games played, 4 points, 2 goals, 2 assists. He was the first star of the game versus Seattle, and he's looking very comfortable on a line with Elias Patterson. Not only that, if you're Brock Besser, you're watching Kushmenko on that PP1 in the net front wondering, boy, is my job at jeopardy here? Kushmenko, my player of the week.
Yeah, some steps forward in that first preseason game. And remember, that was his first game action of any sort in the National Hockey League on North American ice. And I thought he was all right on Sunday against the Calgary Flames, but stepped it up a notch or 2. The second goal, come on, that was a tap into the back door. But that first one, my goodness, I think this town's going to be buzzing about that one for a while. The shot, the way that he pulled it to his body, changed the angle a little bit, and then just absolutely ripped it past Joey Decord. So, yeah, I think all things considered, pretty good start for Andrei Kushmenko, and you're starting to feel a buzz around the Kushmenko train here in Vancouver. Let's see what the rest of the preseason brings for him. I'm going to go with the guy that I thought was the best player on the ice last night against the Kraken, and this is a really good sign for him and for the hockey club, and that's Elias Patterson. He's my player of the week. There was a lot of love for him in training camp in Whistler. And remember, last year didn't get a training camp. There was the contract squabble, was late to camp, obviously showed up at the tail end of the preseason, and we know he got off to the dreadful start. They need him. He needs to be in that form that we saw in the second half of the season, and so far so good from Petey. The Deeks were on full display. He was drawing penalties against the Kraken last night. A couple of assists. That cross-crease pass to Garland the other night. Last night it was to Kushmenko. I like what I've seen. Elias Patterson, he just looks dialed in. He looks like he's digging in here. He looks like he wants to be ready for the start of the season. And I would say through 1 week of the preseason, if you could just fast forward to October 12th, drop the puck and get on with it, he looks like he's ready to go.
Yeah, it's like night and day from last year at this time around training camp with Elias Patterson. Of course, they're going through the contract problems. Then he gets off to the slow start. In fact, we had him in the penalty box quite a bit in that first half of last season, that is. So good to see EP40 stepping it up and sort of, it feels like he's taken a bit of a leadership role here amongst this group as well. We see him wearing an A in those preseason games. I like what I've seen from Elias Patterson so far. Love that choice as your player of the week. Perhaps you've got a player of the week or who you'd like to put in the penalty box. You can leave it in the comments below. We will be back here tomorrow on YouTube. Exclusive pregame for the Canucks and the Kraken, the second of the home and home with Seattle. And then, of course, we'll be back with the post-game podcast as quick as we can after the final horn tomorrow night. And be sure to follow us on all your podcast platforms. For Jeff Patterson, I'm Andrew Wadden. This has been another edition of the Rink Wide Vancouver podcast. And remember, Rink Wide is the show that always scores.